Good afternoon, welcome back to another brew time at the Mini Performance Workshops. Today's job is back on the 8 ports, specifically Austin. In yesterday's video that I shot when I was working on, or was supervising Karen working on Sheldon, link below, one of the things I had to do was I had to move Austin to make room for Karen's car to get in the workshop. And because the fueling is out, I fouled the plugs. So obviously I realised that I need to redo the mapping on it. Now the reason I have to redo the mapping is because if you cast your minds way back to when I put the 5-speed gearbox in, which was possibly a year ago, more or less. What happened was I rebuilt the engine and had to redo all the timing, the cam timing, but I didn't take the cylinder head off because I didn't want to disturb the gasket that hadn't been on that long, and I didn't see the reason for it. And after that, it was never as good at starting, and I thought there was something possibly off with the cam timing. Perhaps I hadn't got top dead center bang on because I didn't have any way of it really accurately establishing top dead center. So obviously after that we had the whole escapade with the half moon seal not sealing, and then having to strip down that side of the engine again, which meant I had to redo the cam timing. And because I was redoing the cam timing, I knew that I had to make sure that the top dead center was right, which is why you saw that tool that I used when I was putting it all back together to establish the top dead center down through the plug hole. So therefore what I'd done was previously I'd altered the mapping to trying to get it to run right. So now I think the engine is more likely back to what it should have been in the first place when it was originally mapped. So what I intend to do today is, first job was to take the plugs out, inspect them, clean them and chuck them back in, which is what I've done. I did the method I always use: crack them first with the spark plug spanner and then use a rubber hose that I have specially for the job to pull the plugs out. Then I clean them obviously, then I put them back in with the rubber hose, and that way it's only held, they're only like pushed in with the strength of the rubber hose if you want it. So you very little chance of stripping the threads in the alloy head. So that's all done, it's all back together now. So the next job will be to look at the mapping. What I have found is that now it is starting probably better than it ever has done, and looking at the fueling figures in the map that I had modified and the old previous 5-speed, pre-5-speed gearbox map, the startup enrichment, which is your choke as we'll call it, is a lot richer for the first few turns of the engine, and it fires up quite well, and then it runs a little bit rich, which is probably why that plug fouled. And then basically as soon as the startup enrichment is finished, the choke has switched itself off after a time period, which is how it's set. It's set by a number of engine turns, and I think it's set at 1500 engine turns, which works out at like half a minute of running or whatever. Anyhow, when that finishes, the engine stalls, it goes super weak and won't run. Now when you look at the actual fueling map for how it is now and how it was before, it is a lot weaker now. So that explains why it won't run. So what I intend to do is revert back to the old map, the pre 5-speed gearbox map, and then use the enrichment map as it is now to possibly fix the starting that wasn't too fantastic before. So job number one is to open it up, see what map's on it, see what the figures are, just in case they're not like are saved on the PC. Then probably put the old map back on, see how well it starts. And I'm going to assume at the moment that it doesn't start very well from cold. Then what I'll do is I'll alter the fueling enrichment figures to match the map as it is now when it is starting well on the old map, and then see how that behaves. But I'll run through some of that when I'm in the car and got the laptop open in front of me. Right, so we'll start off by having a look at the startup enrichment map, and this is map version 34, which is on the ECU at the moment. Just in case you can't see these figures, I can't tell through the view screen if you can see them or not. We've got 308, 286, 278, 220, 226, 205. So they're the main squirts of fuel initially going in for the first 20 turns of the engine. And this 308 value, whoops, it's moving. This 308 value is a percentage of the existing fuel pulse. So if I shut that down and then go to the main fuel map, which is that one, and we look at the values round about idle. We've got 247, 234, 236, 2.57, 2.6. So I know that those are weaker than what's on the other map, the old map as we'll call it. So what we'll do is I'll shut this one down because I know that's the same as the one that's saved on the PC. So we'll open the old map. It's just telling me to close all the windows, that's fine. So we'll open the old map, which was pre the engine rebuild with the 5-speed box. So it's uploading that map to the ECU. It gives you a real-time display, I don't want that. Let's just have a look at these. Look at the main field map first. See the values here, like 248, 249, 250 in this area, whereas it was like 2.2s and 2.3s on the other one. By the time you get down to 1200 is at 2.32, but this one here at 2.5, that's sort of in your idle area, and these are the ones, it's zero throttle and up to 950 revs. So this is your starting area, because it only turns at what, 300-400 RPM or something like that when it's turning over. So we'll shut that down and then we'll have a look at the engine start fueling map, which is the choke one, and you can see the values there are quite a bit less than what was on that other one that I showed you. It's 250, 230, 210, whereas on the other one it was like 308, 286, something like that, and these values gone down the way were less as well. So that's the map that's in the car now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the garage doors, the workshop doors, and see how it starts on this map, on this start fueling, and if it'll keep running or not, and how the mixture behaves. And then if it doesn't want to start, I'll enrich these to match the map that I've just taken off, and then see how it goes from there. On first goes, that doesn't look so it started that well. Maybe just needs a bit more squirt fueling in the initial squirt, and then see how it behaves after that. The trick will be to keep it running, which is always the tricky part. So, tweakage ahoy! Okay, so what happened there was, as it jumped across the columns, as it got a little bit warmer, see the values down here are really low for the amount of fuel it's adding in. As soon as they dropped off into the low values, it didn't want to run, so what I'll do is I bump those up. The trick is to try and give it a chance to get warmed up, and when you look at them, the values in the 20-degree column are higher than they are in the 10-degree, which isn't correct. So what I'll probably do is interpolate across between the 1-degree column and the 20-degree column. So I've made those changes. Let's just see what happened this time. And it went really weak and stopped again, so more changes required. So what I'll keep doing is I'll just keep trying it and making slight tweaks until I can get it to successfully idle. The only problem is you only get one chance at this, as I've said in previous videos, because it starts to warm up, and these are the temperature gradients across the top. So as soon as the engine gets up to 20, you can only start tweaking what's in these, in that column, and the same 20, 30, 40, 50, etc. Once it starts to get warmed up, your chance at tweaking the cold starting is gone. Again, as it got down into this section down here, as soon as it got down to like 6% enrichment, it cut out. The AFR went round to 15, 16. So all I'm going to do is keep tweaking this until I get somewhere. There's no point in filming repeated start attempts until I can get it to idle anyway. Well, I finally got somewhere. Got it to idle. What I had to do was turn the idle control off and just have it idling, controlled by the actual idle screw, not the timing scatter that provides the idle control. But the strange thing is that the real-time mapping is showing a lambda, adjustment of nearly 20% to get the fueling correct at idle. But yet the air fuel history pages and the corrections and the difference counts on that page is showing a different value. So I'm a little bit confused at the moment, but it is idling. But I do think I might try altering the fueling at idle just to see how it affects that lambda adjustment figure, which is 20%, massive like. But I can understand why that is different to the air fuel history page and the difference it's showing there between target and actual lambda. Doesn't quite make sense. So I'll do a bit more tweaking, but it is idling at least, so we'll come back to that in a minute. Right, a minor solution to it. It appears that the entire fuel map is too weak by a long way. It's much happier as soon as I richen it up by a considerable amount, nearly 10-15% across the board. so I'm gonna have quite a bit of driving about to do, I think. Yeah, so what I think I'll do is, in the normal slow speed stuff, I'm just gonna whack 10% on the entire field map, the lower areas, and try a test drive and see what it's like. I suppose that's all I can do. But yeah, as soon as I added nearly 20% of field to the idle cell, it altered the amount of corrections down to virtually nothing, and the engine and everything sounded much happier, and it starts better. So we'll just see how we go from there. That does mean possibly that the excess fuel I've added at the start might not be needed now, because I've richened up the initial value that it's adding a percentage to. But until the engine's cold again, I won't be able to test that. So again, it's one of those things where you get one shot at it. So yeah, I'm going to make that do for today. There's nothing much else I can do. Perhaps have a little drive around in the car park outside. Yeah, I suppose next video on this will probably be some sort of test driving out on the roads on a nice day, because I think it's going to chuck it down, and I don't fancy getting the car wet for no particular reason. So it's probably been quite a long video, but the key is get the mechanical side of it sorted first. Try not to let the electronics control anything until it needs to. So mechanical idle first, which was disabling the ECU's idle control. Get it idling purely on the throttle screw, get the fueling right, tweak it and tweak it and tweak it so that everything, all the AFRs and everything were right at idle, and then go from there. Afterwards you can turn the idle control back on if you want, but for the moment I've got a base setting that I can work from in future sessions. So yeah, I hope it hasn't been too long. It's probably gone on a bit, but hopefully it might have been useful for somebody. So like, comment, subscribe. Any queries about mapping, this is DTA software, and mapping of 8 ports, give me a shout.